There are different forms of presentation. There are various factors which go into presentation. We will be discussing all those factors which are significant and important for making an effective presentation. Let me now discuss another format of presentation. I would like to identify 6 factors which constitute an important format of presentation. Number 1, icebreaker. Number 2, opening. Number 3, discuss the need for a new idea. Number 4, the idea. Number 5, what are the benefits which are going to be accruing as part of the presentation? Summary and conclusion. Every presentation needs to have summary and conclusion. Let me look at what is the purpose of this 6 formats of presentation. The idea in having an ice-breaking session is in terms of warming up. We need to see that our students open up. That's why you have an ice-breaking session. Then opening, introduction to the topic. You need to tell them what is the topic, what is that we are going to be discussing, what is the purpose of the presentation, what is the purpose of the meeting, or what is the purpose of the seminar. Discuss the need for a new idea, solicit their willingness. Are they willing to participate in the presentation? We must try to make all communication participatory in nature. What is the idea we are going to be communicating? What is the thrust area of our presentation? And then what are the accruing results and benefits? What is the importance and significance of the idea? Only when we make all these factors very clear, then our students are going to be interested in our presentation. And summary and conclusion is also important. Why do we go about having summary and conclusion? We would like to have recall. We would like to recollect what we have said in our 30-minute presentation. So it is important that there are different formats of presentation. This is one format of presentation we can go about developing. I will identify several factors which are important for a good presentation. These are the very, very essential characters which are required in terms of presentation. Number 1, a clear structure with introduction. Any presentation needs to have a clear structure with introduction, particularly when you are lecturing in a classroom situation. Number 2, facts and figures are important. We talk any subject, we are making a presentation, facts and figures are important. They need to be, not only facts and figures are important, but they also need to be visually represented. We have several audiovisual aids which are available today for communication purposes. We need to use several audiovisual aids which are available, maybe graphs, maybe charts. We can go about effectively using them for communication purposes, particularly when you are explaining facts and figures. For presentation, we need to use audiovisual aids effectively. Different colors, if you want to make a distinction between, in terms of when you are talking about percentages or share, we need to use different kinds of colors so that students can understand very easily. Why are we using audiovisual aids? We are using for better communication, for effective communication. So today we can use different kinds of colors so that our communication can be effective. The presenter must show an understanding on the subject on which he is lecturing. Only when you have clarity on what we are lecturing, then you will be in a position to effectively communicate. The other important aspect in terms of effective presentation is sense of humor. Wherever it is possible, if you can use humor, that will be a good presentation. The purpose of presentation is trying to use some anecdotes. Narration is important in terms of presentation. And then the major aspect again in terms of presentation is to see that we provoke students to get involved in your presentation so that they can go about asking some questions. The idea in terms of making presentation is to make students think. So that is where, what are the elements of a presentation? There are 3 elements which are important in terms of presentation. 1, the presenter, the person who is making the presentation. 2, audience, 3, specific content. These are the 3 factors you need to go about taking into consideration. Let me also identify some other important characteristics, important features which go into an effective presentation. Number 1, what is your idea, your purpose of your presentation? You need to be very clear with an idea. 2, with the purpose of your presentation. Analyze your audience. We need to have background relating to our audience. Identify the need of the audience. All communication in terms of presentation should be need based. We are trying to take their needs into consideration and go about making a presentation. Particularly in terms of making a presentation in the classroom, there is a set curriculum, there is a syllabus. We are trying to lecture to the students on the basis of the syllabus. We are trying to make a presentation by taking a particular unit, a particular topic. So that's where you identify the need. Collect all information. Information today is available in libraries. There are several volumes are available, several research journals are available. Now, so many websites are available. Internet has revolutionized communication. At a press of a button, so much of information is available. You need to collect all the information. Then you can go about preparing for making a presentation. We need to design our communication. Very important concept in terms of presentation. How do you go about designing your communication? Designing your communication would mean what is the content you want to make a presentation, the mode of your presentation, how are you going to introduce the subject, how are you going to develop your subject, what kind of examples you're going to be giving part of your presentation, what kind of a case studies you want to give it, how are you going to explain those case studies, and how are you going to summarize, how are you going to conclude your presentation. Design your presentation, time your presentation, very important. We need to have a clear idea how much time we have for our presentation. If it is a 20-minute presentation, you need to prepare exactly for 20 minutes. If it's a 30-minute presentation, you need to prepare for 30 minutes. If we do not really take time of our presentation, time into consideration, our presentation will go. Our presentation is not going to be effective because we prepared for 60 minutes and then we are supposed to be delivering that for 20 minutes. You need to find out before you go about making a presentation what is the time which is going to be allocated for your presentation. If it is 20 minutes, then you need to make a presentation for 20 minutes. Decide on the visual aids you want to use. Study the location where you're going to be making a presentation. It's important. Whether you've got all the facilities there in terms of trying to make a presentation. Let me now look at in terms of, we need to ask ourselves a question. A presenter has to pose this question to himself or herself: why I'm making a presentation? The purpose of presentation is to sell something, to persuade people, to inform people, to create awareness, motivate people, educate people, and impart people. When you have such a challenging task, you need to prepare very well. You need to make your presentation absolutely professional so that your audience are going to be with you in terms of your presentation. We are now going to be discussing a very important aspect of presentation: designing a presentation. We need to have a certain framework for presentation. And I would like to take one example to make my point in terms of designing of a presentation. If you have been given 30 minutes to make a presentation, how are you going to design your presentation? How are you going to allocate time for this 30-minute presentation? That is where we will spend some time discussing how we should go about allocating the 30 minutes for a presentation. Introduction, to introduce the subject, we can take 3 minutes to introduce the subject, so that audience will have an idea that What are the issues we're going to be raising as part of your presentation? The main body of the presentation, we can take 15 minutes where we can develop our idea, where we can give some case studies to make our point of view. Conclusion, 2 minutes. We can summarize, we can conclude by taking about 2 minutes to summarize our presentation. Questions and answers. No presentation is complete without questions and answer. We can allocate about 10 minutes for questions and answers. So we will recommend that by making an effective presentation, you take for introduction 3 minutes, main body of presentation 15 minutes, conclusion 2 minutes, and question and answers 10 minutes. What is the purpose of question and answers? In question and answers, we can clarify more, we can explain more, we can make our point of view more clear. The audience have not understood perhaps what you have said. You want to substantiate a point of view. When you get to know those questions in that 10 minutes, you can elaborate your subject a little more. That's an opportunity. That's why any kind of a good presentation, we should inbuild 10 minutes for making a presentation. The other important aspect in terms of presentation is to repeat your main idea, repeat your most important point for patiently listening to your 30-minute presentation. So this constitutes the format of a presentation. One of the important aspects in terms of presentation is do not read. If you're going to be reading, you're not going to be maintaining an eye contact. You cannot effectively use your body language because the entire concentration is on reading. Reading a script, however well it is prepared, it is not an effective presentation. So that is where we have talked about that you need to rehearse. If you can spend some time at home rehearsing your presentation, then there's no need for you to read your script. You'll be in a position to make your presentation very effectively. One of the major qualities which is required for effective presentation is not to read the script, so that you can develop an eye contact with your audience and you can effectively use your body language. Let us also look at some of the other characteristics which are important in terms of presentation. Your presentation should be in an effective language, in a simple language. Language plays an important role in effective presentation. You must try to use the right kind of a word at the right place. You need to structure your sentences very well so that the audience can understand, can assimilate very well. It's also important as part of your presentation if you can give some examples. So I would like to identify 7 important factors in terms of presentation. Number 1, your presentation should be very clear. Number 2, your presentation should be free of jargon. Your presentation should have simple sentences. Your presentation should avoid complex and passive words and phrases. Use active words for your presentation. Be concise. Brevity is a good hallmark of presentation. And use the right kind of syntax. Use the right kind of a language for a presentation. And the body language plays an important role in terms of presentation. Your appearance, the kind of a dress you wear, maintaining good positive posture, your eye contact, your gestures, the way you smile, all these factors are important in terms of presentation. If you can take these factors into consideration, you will be in a position to make effective presentation, and you need to use body language for communication purposes. It is important to speak, it is important to discuss the role of body language in presentation. I would like to identify several factors which are important as part of body language. Let us now look at some of the negative gestures. There are positive gestures, negative gestures. There's positive body language, there's negative body language. We don't pay attention at all when you are making a presentation to body language. Hands in the pocket. covering mouth with your handkerchief, scratching, biting nails, glancing sideways, drumming fingers, clearing your throat too often, tapping your foot, crossing arms and legs, a slumped posture, sitting on the edge of the chair, rocking your legs, looking at the ceiling, straightening the tie, setting the hair with hands, speaking too fast or too haltingly, adjusting your glasses, blinking a lot, playing with jewelry, watches, cufflinks, clicking pens up, pencil, frequently sipping water, playing with a paperweight as we are making a presentation, smoking, staring, pointing at someone, showing a fist, holding both arms, bending over someone. All these are negative forms of body language, negative gestures. Gestures have a great deal to do with body language. We need to pay attention to all this while you are making a presentation. We are now going to be discussing guidelines for analyzing audience. Because in any presentation, we need to know our audience, and we also need to get information about how audience have reacted to our presentation. So it is important to get to know information relating to the audience. I would like to identify 6 factors which are important in getting an understanding about the audience for an effective presentation. Number 1, who are your audience? Number 2, why are they attending your presentation? Number 3, what is their background level of knowledge in terms of or in relation to your presentation? How many persons will be there for the presentation? What are the likely information levels? What are their attitudes? And what is the outcome of your presentation? Because it is important for an effective presentation that we need to analyze our audience, and we also need to get their reaction and their feedback. Let us summarize briefly what we have looked at. Let us summarize briefly what we examined at. Finally, let me remind you some of the issues we have discussed. We have discussed the various forms of presentation. Presentation skills are important for students. Every student should master the skills of the presentation. Let me now summarize whatever we have discussed in terms of presentation. The importance of preparation is important in presentation. The nature of audiovisual aids you are going to be using in presentation. How are you going to be delivering your presentation? The language of presentation. What are the issues you are going to be covering in your presentation? Preparation is very, very basic for an effective presentation, and you need to take time into consideration. If you have 30 minutes, you must make a presentation in 30 minutes. As we talked about, 3 minutes for introduction, 15 minutes for developing the subject, 2 minutes for summarizing, concluding the subject, 20 minutes for question and answer. If you can take some of these major factors which you have identified for presentation, you will be in a position to make an effective presentation. The purpose of presentation is to give information. The purpose of presentation is to influence students. The purpose of presentation is to persuade students, motivate students. The purpose of presentation is to educate them and inspire them. All this is only possible provided you adopt the guidelines we have so extensively talked about making a presentation, so that you can make an effective presentation. I hope next time, when you make a presentation, you will take all the guidelines, rules and principles we talked about for making an effective presentation. Hoping next time when you make a presentation, you will try to take these factors into consideration for making an excellent presentation.